Jacob and the Fire. Winter sure was taking a long time to come this year. Everywhere Jacob looked, he saw no signs of winter's chilly breath or slushy puddles, and he was starting to feel impatient. Where he lived, the trees seemed to be holding on tight to their leaves, and the birds were stubbornly singing their songs every morning. Even the ocean water continued to sparkle and dance in the sun's golden rays, almost as if it was mocking Jacob as he searched for signs of winter. Every now and then an icy wind might whistle through from the south, teasing his hair or slipping down the back of his shirt, but it never seemed to stay around for long. Jacob longed for the cold weather, and most of all, he longed for the time when he and Dad could finally light that big pile of branches they had gathered last school holidays. It really was so much fun. Dad was home, and together they had pruned the fruit trees, then dragged each of the limbs all the way across the yard, making a neat pile not far from the shed where Dad parked his ute. Jacob remembered it was so hot that day they'd both taken off their shirts, dripping with sweat, and shared a special icy drink for afternoon tea. He loved working with his dad. Jacob knew winter was coming because his outside play after school was definitely getting shorter and shorter, and Dad was getting home from work now when it was almost dark. Every afternoon, Jacob would wait by the big pile of wood he and Dad had collected, and when Dad arrived home, Jacob would greet him with a hopeful face. "Not tonight, mate," Dad would say, and Jacob's heart would sink. It just never seemed to be the right time for a fire. One day, after school, Jacob had a good idea. Maybe the burn pile just wasn't quite big enough yet. So that afternoon, he got very busy collecting as many sticks and dried leaves as he could possibly find and added them all to the growing pile. He worked and worked for hours, it seemed, until it was almost dark and Jacob saw the lights of Dad's ute coming down the driveway. Jacob proudly stood beside the pile that was now much larger than before and excitedly told Dad all the places he'd found the extra wood. Surely now they could burn the pile. "Not tonight, mate," Dad said. "Tonight's not the right night for a fire." Jacob followed him sadly into the house. The next afternoon, Jacob had another good idea. At school, when the local firefighters had come to show his class the truck and talk about fire safety, he remembered learning how to dig a good, safe trench around the edges of a big fire like this one to stop it from spreading. Quickly he ran to Dad's tool shed and found the shovel with the short handle, and dug and dug and dug, until he had tiny blisters on his hands, as well as a good channel of earth all the way around the burn pile. When Dad arrived home late that afternoon, just as Mum started calling Jacob in for the bath, he proudly showed Dad the trench he had dug all by himself, as well as the blisters. "Great work," Dad said. "Now make sure you always put my tools back in the shed, won't you?" And Dad picked up the shovel off the ground and put it back in the tool shed on his way to the house. Jacob didn't even have time to ask him if tonight they could have a fire. This time he had to fight back the tears as he trod after Dad back into the house. That night, as Jacob was going to sleep, he peeked out through his bedroom curtains, up to the night sky. The stars were twinkling so brightly, it made him think of the tiny little fireflies he and Dad had seen when they went camping last summer. Jacob had never seen them before, and at first he was a bit frightened that they might land on the tent and start a fire with their bright little tails. But Dad had assured him that the fireflies, well, they were more like fire fairies, and they only brought their fire and warmth to places they were needed. He remembered all this, and just before he fell asleep that night, Jacob had another idea, and he made a wish. The next day, and for the rest of the week, It seemed that winter had finally arrived. A cold, icy wind howled all day long, and the sun only peeked its head through the clouds a few times. The rest of the days were left in a thick grey cloud. Jacob kept his beanie on tight and his fleece jacket buttoned up high, and every night, before he went to sleep, he would peek out at the twinkling stars and make a wish. At the end of the week, when Jacob got home from school, he got a great surprise. Dad was home early, waiting for him with a warm cup of cinnamon milk. He didn't dare ask the question, even though he was sure the fire fairies had heard his wish. When they finished their warm drinks, they both pulled on their boots and headed out into the backyard. And when Dad stopped to pick up a big old stick that had fallen from the gum tree, they both smiled at each other. "I think tonight might be the night," Dad said, and Jacob jumped for joy. That night, as the flames lit up the dark sky, crackling and devouring the branches they had worked so hard to collect, Jacob cuddled up in his dad's lap, mesmerised by the dancing heat. He slowly looked up towards the night sky, and just above the flames there were some tiny bright flashes of light. He squinted to see better, but it was almost impossible to tell if they were sparks from the raging fire, or twinkling stars in the sky above, or maybe, just maybe, they were the fire fairies, watching over the warmth below. Come gather, there's work to be done. Make a bundle, take an armful, together it's fun. Once gathered we'll warm by the fire, everyone. Each giant limb we heave from the forest floor tells us a tale of a mighty rise and fall. Cold hands on bark, together we march, a new story forged by the flame. Come gather, there's work to be done. Make a bundle, take an armful, together it's fun. Once gathered we'll warm by the fire, everyone. We work while the sun fades into the coming night. We know within wood lies a merry dance of light. First just a spark, a flicker in the dark, as the night glows with laughter and song. Come gather, the work has been done. Come gather, there's songs to be sung. Once gathered we'll sing by the fire, everyone. As the coals gently glow and my soul starts to tire, wrapped in the warmth of a slow fading fire, my eyes start to close as I drift to and fro, and I wake in my bed from the dream of a fire. Yes, I wake in my bed from the dream of a fire, and my hair shares the smell of good times round the fire. And my hair shares the smell of good times round the fire. Yes, we'll always find warmth by the light of the fire. Come gather, come gather, come gather, there's work to be done. Make a bundle, take an armful, together it's fun. Once gathered we'll sleep by the fire, everyone. Once gathered we'll sleep by the fire, everyone.